Hello, at-home learners. This is a quick reminder to turn in your homework that's due today. Today we're going to do more division problems, but instead of common denominators, we're going to talk about something called reciprocals. So the very first thing I'm going to do is go through your homework. So here's the first problem, 2/5 divided by 3/4. So I changed 2/5 into 8/20, that's down here. And I changed 3/4 into 15/20, that's down here. And if I divide across, now I'm going to look at my denominators. 20 divided by 20 is 1. And I don't have to divide by 1, so I'm going to cross that out. On the top, 8 divided by 15 can be rewritten like this. And I'm going to take the entire thing and rewrite it with an 8 on top of 15. The answer is 8/15. All right. For the second problem, 1/4 divided by 1/6, the first thing I needed to do was make common denominators. So times by 3 down on the bottom, times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. And on the right side, 6 times 2 is 12. 1 times 2 is 2. So I'm going to change my fractions from 1/4 to 3/12. And I'm going to change my fraction from 1/6 to 2/12. And then I'm going to divide across. I always like starting with the denominator. If you make common denominators, the 1 is always going to be next. 12 divided by 12 is 1, which I don't need. And on top, 3 divided by 2 is the same as 3 on top of 2, which I'm going to rewrite, 3 on top of 2. And then I'm going to put it in my calculator. I know the denominator stays the same. It's going to be 2. And then when I put it in my calculator, 3 divided by 2 gives me a whole number of 1. So now I'm going to do my multiplying. 1 times 2 is 2, but I'm trying to make 3, so I have to add 1. So 1 and 1/2 is my final answer. Please, please, please don't forget to turn that in even though you're at home. Today, lesson 12, our final lesson. I can use the reciprocal of a fraction when dividing two fractions. So I need to figure out what this word reciprocal means. And to do that, I'm going to kind of back up a little bit. So it says, how can we write a division problem? I could write 3 divided by 4, like this. Or I could write it so it looks like a fraction, with the 3 on top of the 4. And what does this division problem mean? It means how many 4s does it take to make 3? It takes less than 1 4, because 1 4 is 4. And that's already bigger than 3, all right? So my answer is less than 1, and that's why this is a fraction and not a mixed number, because it takes less than 1 4 to make 3. Okay, so what about this problem? 4/5 divided by 1/5, right? So how could I write this as a division problem, all right? It's already written as a division problem. We just practiced and said if it's got common denominators, we could just divide across. 5 divided by 5 is 1, which I don't need, right? And 4 divided by 1 would look like this, right? And that's the same as saying 4 on top of 1. And if I put that in my calculator, that's just the number 4 holes. But what does this division problem mean? Right? So going back and thinking about it, I have this starting amount, 4/5, and I want to try to find out how many fifths are hiding inside. I'm going to draw a rectangle and cut it into 5 to the best of my ability. Not too bad. And I'm going to color in 4/5. There it is. I have 4/5 right here. I want to know how many 1/5 are hiding inside. Here's my first fifth. This is number 1. Here's my second fifth, number 2. Here's my third fifth, number 3. And here's my fourth fifth. That's why the answer is 4. 4 of these make that. All right, in a moment, you're going to hear me sounding different because I have to pause the video and then I'll restart the video. I'll splice them together to make a full lesson for you. I am also subbing for dance today, so you might hear some sounds in the background. This is the same problem, 4/5 divided by 1/5. So notice here's 4/5, it's on the top. 1/5 is here on the bottom. So I could write 4/5 divided by 1/5 this way. If I do, I notice that the denominator is kind of icky. It's 1/5. I want the denominator to be 1. So I'm going to write way over here on the other side. I'm going to write 1. But before it's 1, I'm going to make it be 5/5. So something, 1/5 times something equals 5/5. Well, if I look at the numerators, 1 times 5 is 5. And on the bottom, 5 times 1 is 5. So this fraction right here is called a reciprocal. It's the flipped over version of 1/5. So I'm going to grab a different color. The 5 is now on top. The 1 is now on the bottom. When you multiply any fraction by its flipped over version, by its reciprocal, you will always get the answer of 1. And we want to have the answer of 1. We want to have the answer of 1 because if 1 is on the denominator, then whatever's on top is going to be our answer when we're done. All right? Whatever is on top is going to be our answer because anything divided by 1 is itself, right? However, I need to think back to the homework, this problem here, and I can see that here's 1/6. To make it be 2/12, I multiplied by 2 on the bottom and the top. For this fraction, to change it, I multiplied by 3 on the bottom and the top. That connects to the problem that I just did for you, or we started, because 1/5 is on the bottom. I multiplied it by 5 wholes. Then I have to multiply the top fraction, 4/5, also by 5 wholes. At this point, I can cross out everything on the bottom because it equals 1. And anything divided by 1 is itself. Now I can go through and I can finish this problem on top. We've done a lot of multiplying with fractions. 5 is prime. So I'm going to write 1 times 5, 1 times 5, and I can cross out the 5s. And if I want to, I can cross out the 1s as well. Then I have a denominator of 1, and there's only one way to write 1. 1 times 1. I could write 2 times 2 for 4, but then I can't cross out anything. So instead, I'm going to write 1 times 4. Give me 3 minutes because I'm in the middle of making a video. I'm going to cross out a 1 on the bottom and on the top. Here's what's left. A 4 on top of 1. 4 on top of 1 looks like this. And if I put that in my calculator, 4 divided by 1 is 4. And even though I'm in a different space, I remember all the way from this morning, that was our answer on this page too. The answer is 4. So this is a second way to do a division problem. We started with 4/5 divided by 1/5. The problem said up on the top, 4/5 times 5 wholes. So to change a division problem into a multiplication problem, we need to solve a division problem with multiplication, we also need to flip the second fraction. We need to flip 1/5 into its reciprocal, 5 wholes. So I'm going to do a couple of examples. Just jumping to the main idea of if I want to divide a fraction by a fraction, or if I want to divide by fractions, I just need to look at the second fraction, 2/3. Grab a different one, 2/3, and I need to flip it over and change it into its reciprocal, which is 3/2. And then everything else, 1/5, stays in the same order, but that divide by changes to a times. So instead of 1/5 divided by 2/3, an equivalent statement is 1/5 times 3/2. Then I'm going to just write it like we've been practicing. 1 times 1 is 1. All the other numbers are prime. 1 times 2, 1 times 3, and 1 times 5. So the only thing that's common is 1s. 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom. 1 on the bottom, 1 on the top. Now I'm going to multiply across. 1 times 3 is 3. And on the bottom, 5 times 2 is 10. 3/10 is the correct answer. I also gave kids a list of the possible answers. So there's 3/10. I'm going to do a different problem. 2/5 divided by 7/10. So first thing, I'm going to look at the one on the right. I want to divide. I'm going to look on the right side. I'm going to flip that fraction over. I'm going to use its reciprocal. So instead of 7/10, it's 10/7. And then I'm going to multiply. Keep the order the same, 2/5 times 10/7. All right, I'm going to look for prime numbers. 3 of them are prime. 1 times 2, 1 times 5, 1 times 7. 10 isn't prime, so I'm not just going to write 1 times 10. I'm going to look at the denominators that I used, 1, 5, 7. One of those, 2 of them, are factors of 10. 7 is not a factor of 10. I can always use 1. I want to try to use a number that's not 1, like 5. That's 5 times 2. I'm going to cross out the common factors. 5's gone, 5's gone, 1 and 1. I cannot cross out these 2 2's because 2 times 2 is 4. If I have a 2 on top of another 2, that means 1. And if I multiply by 1, my answer doesn't change. So it's got to be a 2 on the top, a numerator, and 2 on the bottom. I can't cross those out. So here we go. 2 times 2 is 4. And on the bottom, 1 times 7 is 7. 4/7 is the correct answer. And I'm going to do one more. We're going to do this one, 8/9 divided by 2/3. If I want to divide, I'm going to look on the right side and I'm going to flip that fraction over. So instead of 2/3, it's 3/2. If I want to divide, I look on the right side, I find the reciprocal, 3/2, and then I multiply. See how I change that into a times? Okay, I'm going to find my prime numbers. It's 2 and 3. 1 times 2 and 1 times 3. 8 and 9 aren't prime. So I'm going to try to use the factors that I already have, like 3. I can use 3 to make 9. 3 times 3. Cross out a 3, cross out a 3. Instead of just using 1 times 8, right? I see that there's a 2 as a denominator. 2 is a factor of 8, so I'm going to cross out 1 times 8, and I'm going to write 2 times 4. Cross out a 2 on the bottom, cross out a 2 on the top. Now I'm going to look at what's still left. There's a 4 and a 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Use my highlighter tool now. There's a 3 and a 1. 3 times 1 is 3. I could put that in my calculator. 4 divided by 3 gets me 1.33333333. But did you hear me say 1 point? That's my whole number, 1. The denominator stays 3. 1 times 3 is 3, but I'm trying to make 4. So I need to add 1. 1 and 1/3 is the correct answer. Here it is, right? So dividing fractions is a lot like multiplying fractions, but you have to flip the second fraction over. I'm going to put the worksheet in that kids did in class. It is not an assignment. It is for you to practice and see how you do. Tomorrow's homework will have 1 problem like this and 1 problem with mixed numbers.